And question two is, how do I navigate being a people pleaser? Right. So if you're watching this on a replay or I've cut this video up or something, there's more on this in the first, in just go look at the other video from episode 4 and you'll get both of them together. Okay. So we're going to break it down like we always do. Our nervous system is triggered by beliefs from our socialization, right? So people pleasing, as we talked about, is a fawn response, right? We have this need to satisfy other people's needs, often to the detriment of our own needs. So thoughts that we might have are like, they'll be upset if I don't do this, right? Like if they'll be upset if I don't go to the brunch, right? She'll think I'm a terrible friend if I don't text her back right now, right? Or if I don't go meet her for drinks or whatever it is. And then we're back to that thought, I can't let them down, right? There's this thing of like, and the reason that feels that's so powerful is that we're so afraid of, like, if we let them down, then they won't like us, then they won't tell us we're valuable and worthy. It's like we're failing as humans, right? Because we're not getting any praise and validation for that action. Like rarely do we get any praise and validation from anyone other than like maybe our best friend for putting our needs first. Like, good for you for like taking the day off and having a spa day or whatever it is, right? And then the one that drives so much people pleasing is, I don't want to be selfish. Right. If you think about it, there's this quote from this woman, Amanda Montell. She wrote this book called Word Slut, which is called like A Feminist Guide to Taking Back Language. Anyway, she has this amazing quote in it that's, the worst thing that you can call a woman is a prostitute. The worst thing you can call a man is a woman. But I think if unscientifically, we're going to guess if the second worst thing that we were going to call a woman after a prostitute is selfish, and I would honestly say for a lot of women, right? Because sex work is work for like, that's work. But like being called selfish, right? It just feels like you're like failing as a human. And this is what drives so much people pleasing. All right. So what's going on with our socialization? Well, one, I'm going to say something that's kind of unpopular. People pleasers are liars. They're showing up as someone that they aren't. And they're depriving the world of allowing us to love them exactly as they are. So if you're people pleasing to keep people liking you, they don't even like you. They just like the version of you that shows up and does shit for them. So when we're thinking about this, right, when we're taking responsibility for other people's feelings because we fear being seen as selfish, because there's no validation and praise for putting our needs first, then we can also like tie this in with perfectionism, where we're trying so hard to always get that little cookie, right? Like that little validation cookie all the time, right? And all of this, it's just so unfair. It's so unfair to the people who don't get to love the people-pleasing person exactly as they are, but also for the people pleaser to not be loved for who they are. Right. And so we often think of like people pleasing as like, well, everybody will like me, but they don't like you. They just like the version of you that you're pretending to be, and they don't get the opportunity to love you exactly the way that you are, which is awesome. But there's that fear of like, if people see who I really am, right? But remember the title of this whole series, it's not just you. You are not the only person with these fears, right? So that's my encouragement to like stop the people pleasing sometimes. Okay. So, but what are the feelings that are coming up? So the feelings that are driving this is just a constant low key with like spikes, right? Low key worry and anxiety of how other people are feeling, that you've forgotten something, that you're falling short, that you missed something, right? Like it's just this constant, like, what's going on? Like I definitely see this with my friends when their children were younger, of just, it was just constantly like, what am I missing? What am I missing? Right? Like this inability to kind of sit still and be present in anything, because it was just like, because young children have like they're just like a bottomless pit of needs. They're adorable, but they really need a lot, right? And you could just see that like worry and anxiety and how exhausting that was over time. Okay, so why do these behaviors happen? Well, one, of course, we worry if we're doing it wrong because we constantly get these messages that we're doing it wrong, right? Like, look at any message from Cosmo, right? Of like, we're not in bed right. We don't weigh the right amount. We're too old or we're too young or like whatever that is, right? And so, of course, we're going to be worried about it. Like, if you put patriarchy and capitalism together, you get self-doubt. And our self-doubt is so, so, so profoundly profitable. And then, of course, we're anxious and exhausted because other people's needs are absolutely endless, right? Especially small humans. And of course, we worry about being selfish because we're worried that we're going to be left out alone and unloved, right? Like, all of these behaviors make sense. Like, people pleasing is a survival technique, right? All of these, the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses, they're literally survival techniques. But we want to switch when it's not serving us, when we're people pleasing to the point of our own detriment, right? That's when we want to look at it. But people pleasing in general, like, I people please my mom. There's no like sort of, I don't mind the outcomes, right? It's a way to just keep things running smoothly. Like, there's no problem with that. I don't have a problem with how that's showing up. I don't feel like I'm doing it to my detriment, right? But there's so many ways that we can people please to our own detriment. And then the outcomes that we see when we do it that way is that we become a supporting character in our own narrative. Like, we're not even the lead in the like story of our lives, right? Because we're just so busy being a supporting character in everyone else's, right? And then what happens when we do that is we start to resent the people that we love the most. And that really sucks. Like, when you like when you have that secret resentment of the people and of course the people that you care about the most, because they're the ones who you most want to please. And then we never ever have our needs met, which just shouldn't be the case, right? Like, if you are not first on your own list, then you are first on no one's list. And everyone deserves to be first on somebody's list. And if it's not yours, it's not going to be anyone's. So, and then the part that I've sort of been, beating to death here is that we don't get to be loved for who we are because we're always pretending to be someone else. And that's really like the core of it, right? Because if you understood that, like, no matter who I am and how I show up, I'm going to be loved and cared about and appreciated, right? Then you wouldn't have to do all the people pleasing things. And so the people pleasing is something we can shift in your mind. So here's some thoughts that I'm going to offer, and you can kind of take these and modify them. But what you want to do when I offer like new thoughts to think is you want to practice them with intention. So put them on a sticky note and practice, or put a reminder in your phone, or download the Think Up app and like record yourself in your own voice, telling yourself the thoughts that you're working on. So these are the 4 or 5, I guess, that I'm going to offer you but feel free to play around with them and find with something that like creates relief in your body. Okay, so here we go. So there's always enough time to do the things that matter, and I matter. I'm always first on my list without letting anyone else down. What I have to give on any given day is always enough. I'm as generous to myself as I am to others. That's like life goals, hashtag. And then the last one is I deserve care too. And this is the one that really got me to stop people pleasing, I couldn't start with like, I prioritize my needs. Like, I had a goal of prioritizing my own needs, particularly when it came to my family. But when I just started with I deserve care too, that really created space for me because I think the fear was if I start caring for me, that's going to be to the detriment of someone else. But the idea of like, oh, there could just be a bigger pie with more care and I'm included in that bigger pie, that was really powerful.